I mean, to start, I think that success is subjective. I think it's a very individualized thing. And for me, simply the fact that I'm doing this, I'm doing something that I never really thought that I could do, but I always wanted to do.
Welcome to the No Excuse Pro podcast, your weekly dose of motivation and actionable advice. If you're a realtor, financial planner, business owner, or anyone who's tired of making excuses and ready to take your success to the next level, you've come to the right place. Join your host, Kevin Brierton, each week as he chats with industry leaders who are going beyond the excuses to achieve their goals. So no excuses accepted. Let's get started.
Joy, thanks so much for joining me. I put together these interviews for around no excuse professionals because I found over the years, there's so many people that have these dreams and they have these goals that they want to accomplish. They write them down every day. But then they have excuses of why they're not getting there. And so I wanted to go deep on agents and other professionals and business owners to understand more about what's making them successful and how are they breaking through the excuses. Maybe we still have some excuses, unfortunately we have to be honest with ourselves too. So I want to learn more about you. Joy, just take 2 minutes and tell me just a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, well, Joy Rosek, you've already mentioned that. And I am a real estate agent. I recently moved over to Exp Realty, and my business partner and I, we mentor about 11 agents, and we love it. Been at this for about 4 years now. And prior to that, I spent my professional career basically in the hospitality field and then community engagement with a master plan community out here in the West Valley. So lots of just working with the public and helping to educate and to bring people together.
That's awesome. So you were working in the public for the community. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Verrado specifically is a master plan community out in Buckeye area. And it's a very unique community because it has two governance structures or two entities, so to speak. You have your typical HOA that's responsible for the beautification of the community and compliance and things like that. Then you have the assembly, who is responsible for all the engagement, all the activities, the groups and clubs, concerts, volunteerism, and all the fun stuff that really brings people together. And so I got to be on that team for about 7 years or so, just helping to build community. It was awesome. I loved it.
That's great. So what has been the one thing that makes a difference, like in your success? What's the one thing that makes a difference for you to be successful?
Well, I mean, to start, I think that success is subjective. I think it's a very individualized thing. And for me, simply the fact that I'm doing this, I'm doing something that I never really thought that I could do, but I always wanted to do. So just kind of day to day, putting one foot in front of the other and just doing the work, that to me is successful.
That's awesome. Well, we've heard, if you think of driving a car at night and your lights are shining out, you don't know what's on the other side of that, but you just, little by little, it reveals itself. And I kind of think of that when you tell me that story.
Right. Yep. Most
That's
definitely.
very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes, we try to make good plans. We try to have, the perfect situation, perfect day, perfect week, perfect process, and things go a little sideways. And, that's when you got to improvise and you can't give up. I feel like, sometimes things get so rigid in our business, in the lending world, that things get so rigid, like, why I'm going to call this person at this time. Well, maybe they need to call because something happened a little earlier than that. Or maybe maybe we don't always call at this time to explain something, but in this situation, because I know X, Y, and Z, I need to pick up the phone. Let's walk through it. Maybe we need an extra touch point or two, an extra meeting or two, and that's okay. And you can't be so rigid. And this is why I believe that the robots and AI and technology are only going to go so far in our business because there's so much nuance. That's the variables, to your point, like being able to move with it, that it makes it difficult. You look at these self-driving robot cars, and they sometimes, if you put a cone on their hood, they like just freeze up. It's like, that doesn't work. I mean, how many cones get put on our hood throughout the day and weeks
Yeah.
that we got to go, okay, well, what do I do here?
Yeah. Yeah. You can't completely remove the human element because at the end of the day, we want that to some degree. So
Yeah, I agree. Well, Joy, have you ever given up on something that you wish you did not give up on?
oh man, I know I was thinking about that. And honestly, for me, it was not getting involved in real estate sooner because I thought about it. I really just, it's so funny because years ago, people would say, well, Joy, what's your favorite show? Or, like, how do you de-stress? Like, what's your routine at night and stuff? This was before we had kids. And I said, honestly, I'll sit there on Zillow. I would look at houses. I'm researching the area. I'm looking at prices. I'm looking at pictures. I'm looking at everything. But I just was afraid. I had imposter syndrome. I still do to a degree. But it's just, I just didn't think I could do it. I thought it was too complex. I didn't know where to start.
Listening to it, let's talk a little bit about the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about that and how you overcome it.
Oh man. Honestly, I think that most people have it, but it just depends on what level you get to. So if you're a beginner, you may have it like, oh, could I even become an agent? And then all of a sudden you become an agent. Ooh, could I be a mentor or could I be a team lead? And then, oh, could I make XYZ? Like there's always something to achieve that's higher. And I've noticed in this industry specifically, it's like the grind, it's like get after it. And at what point do we stop and think, I'm content? Because complacency is different from contentment. And we don't talk about that a lot, and it's like right now, especially this month when things are slower, and I look at the year I had, being in my 4th year, basically of real estate, I am so thankful and I am full of gratitude at what I was able to at least accomplish this year and all the families I was able to serve. So I feel like we really need to get back to that. Like, okay, let's be appreciative of what we have. And it's okay to have goals, but you can be content and still have goals. So anyway, that's like a long answer to that question, but
I love it because I have fought with this over the years. I'm one that like wants to keep, growing and keep getting better.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like I look at like my garage, like bicycles and dirt bikes and this, and it's like, okay, well, do you need something else or do you just enjoy what you have? And at a certain point, like you got to go enjoy what you have, because if you just keep accumulating, whether it's money or houses or wealth or whatever, but you don't enjoy what you have, this is an important topic, because then the rabbit hole some people go down is they go, now I have enough. Money's not everything. And which is true, it said that the root of all evil, or money is the root of all evil, but it's the love of money. Love of money is not just the money itself. So I'm really going deep on like some research on this, because I think the money itself is not fulfilling. You have to have some other worth or why attached to it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, is I believe that people have a vision of whatever they want to do. It may be not nonprofit. It may be something else other than just this. I want to do something around a no excuse dad. Like I have stories about being a no excuse dad where I've structured my day around the perfect life that I want. Meaning that I, for years, come in late on Wednesdays and take my kids to school, both of them on Wednesdays. And now I take my daughter to school every day because of the scheduling. And then I work a little later on Wednesdays because I know clients need a late night appointment a lot of times, where I used to get upset and my wife would be like, well, why aren't you home early? But now I just said, hey, okay, I'm going to have to do this. I structure my day around it.
Mhm.
The reason why I bring this up is because people can have more of what they want, and it's not just about money, but the imposter syndrome is something that creeps in to a lot of our lives of, should I even do this? I mean, I've thought about doing this podcast for a year, and it's like, you know what? I want to do it because I believe that there's people out there that we could impact and help with these answers and questions and thoughts. So if you're if anybody's dealing with imposter syndrome, the best way I would say to get over it is just go do it. And there's a saying, act as if, act as if, act as if, and it will build on itself. Obviously, you'll learn more. Lean on advisors. So Joy, you're part of a team. So what does a team do for you as a realtor when you were new, and even now 4 years in? What does a team do to kind of help you with that imposter syndrome?
Well, I mean, our setup is actually a bit unique. We're not an actual organized team. So my business partner and I, we essentially serve as mentors, and then we have agents who will sign on under us, and then we help to mentor them, not just when they're new, but throughout. Because sometimes, especially when you are a newer agent, or maybe you've been in a couple years and you do a deal here and a deal there, and it's like new every time because you're not consistently doing deals. You may have just basic rudimentary questions that you don't want to go to the broker for every single time. And you don't want to have to spend a ton of time on Google researching it. So we call it a collective. Essentially, we're there to support each other and help each other in this crazy world of real estate. But one thing I wanted to add is, back when I worked in community life in Verrado, we had a saying out there that people own what they help create. And I've never forgotten that because there's so much truth to it. And so I think to combat imposter syndrome and also to help empower new agents in the business is to find whatever aspect of the business that you want to be really good at and own it. Whether you're creating something, whether it's content, whether it's, staging or, whatever it may be, figure out what that is and really take ownership of it, because that'll help you feel like your own internal expert.
That's a great takeaway. That's a great takeaway. So along those lines, I mean, is there something that you provide as a service or a resource that you think it really changes your experience for your clients? Is there some type of specific resource or service you provide?
Mm-hmm. So after my very first deal, which happened to be in Verrado, which was amazing, I was fortunate to sell my first house out there. After that, I took some of that commission and I invested it back into something to help my business. And that was getting certified as a staging design professional. And so that is huge for me. When listing a house, I will either consult with the seller and maybe help them with their own items that they have in their house, or I have a stager who has the inventory that I work with to get the house ready. There is so much about perception when selling a home that we don't realize. That's just psychological. When you walk into a home, how it feels, how it smells, how clean it is, all those things. And I have got, like, probably to a fault, this keen eye for the aesthetic. And so I want to help my clients make sure that they are giving themselves the best opportunity possible to sell their home and do it well, and have their house shine over all the other houses on the market in their neighborhood. So I would say that's it.
That's a big deal though, because, a lot of times, what we see as a lender, we see a lot of times people will just not even look at the houses that are a little rough, that may be nice houses, but they're a little messy. The pictures aren't good. Mm-hmm. So one pro tip that I tell buyers is, why don't you go out and find a house that has ugly pictures, but it's in a good area and a good price, because that could be the deal. But on the flip side of that, if you're listing a house and you want to sell it for the highest price, you want to make sure the pictures look amazing. Make sure that everything is staged correctly. Even if you can't take everything out of the house, there's ways to structure, and I know you're an expert around that, to make it look amazing. So I think that's a very big deal and a huge value add to your clients.
Yeah. And the photos are the first step. So never skimp. Like, I never skimp on photos. Always get pro photos. I will tell you, never take listing photos with the cell phone. I will not do it. Pro photos every time. That draws them in. Once they're in the house, you want them to feel like, wow, these do look like the pictures. So
Joy, how do you handle, like, if a client you talk to says, you know what, Joy, I don't want to do that. I'm gonna take my own pictures, or I don't want to do this, and they're not staging it the way you want. How do you handle those objections?
Yeah. Well, I provide the service So you can't say no because it's part of my listing offering and my package of what I do. The pro photos, at least the staging consult, the staging not always is included. It kind of depends on our whole situation. But yeah, I mean, some won't, but there are still ways to declutter and make the house feel fresh and clean the windows, something so simple. And the pro photos that I love taking, of my listings, we take photos through the window. I mean, it's like an overlay basically, so you can see right through. So if your windows are nasty, then that's not a good thing. So
Yeah.
just some basic tips, just basic tips. And if they don't do it, I haven't had it happen yet. So I won't know how I can overcome that objection because so far everybody has been really just appreciative of the advice and they trust my judgment and it's worked. And I'm thankful for that.
Awesome. What do you think the one thing, like when people come to you and ask for help, what do you think the one main thing they come to you for? What is that what does that do to you to help them out with that? What is the one main thing?
Yeah. Would you say clients or agents? Clients?
Clients, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would say probably the most asked question is it a good time to sell? Is it a good time to buy? So with that, and we tell our agents this as well, you have to always, always be a student of the industry. So that's every day if you're reading an article, if you're jumping online and looking at current mortgage rates, if you're calling Kevin and asking him what the market's looking like from a mortgage rate perspective, whatever that is, you need to be in it and be involved because at any point in time, you could be at a dinner party and someone knows you're an agent or Uncle Bob's telling them, hey, my niece is a realtor over there. And then you end up talking about real estate. You need to be educated. You need to know what you're talking about. So I try to just stay up on everything that I possibly can so that when I do get asked that question, I can help educate on either side because it is just wild to me how much of a deficit there is out there with good, solid information. Buyers who don't think they can buy. Well, why don't you think you can buy? Have you consulted with anybody yet? Have you taken a deep dive into your buying power to see what's possible, what programs exist, all of that? No, they haven't. And so there's a huge lack in education. So I think if we stay up on that, we can be the expert and make people feel comfortable and confident to help walk them through the process.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's excellent. So like help me understand, what was a time where you would consider the customer a hero and why?
Oh, the customer. Oh man. Oh, I will tell you, if you are a buyer or you are a seller and you are able to stay calm through the transaction, it is so emotional. Emotions get high. The unknown can happen. If you are flexible, amiable, you trust your agent, and you just kind of like trust the process, that you are most likely a hero because you're not letting it overtake your emotions. Doesn't help anybody at all. I mean, especially when you have a good agent who has your best interests at heart, you have a great lender who has your best interests at heart. Trust the professionals to get you through it without getting too overly worked up and emotional.
So let's go a layer deeper. Tell me a specific time where you would consider a customer a hero.
Oh man, a specific time. I've got a handful. Okay. I'm going to give you, I'm going to truncate this as best as I possibly can because this was a couple years ago. And I was asked to help a family who was moving to Arizona find a home. And this was during the frenzy. It was crazy. And at the time, their budget was set for good reason. And there were few homes on the market in that price point. So it was tough. And I remember sitting at my table with my son doing homework. I had my computer set up to the side and I would just hit refresh on the MLS just to see if any new listings popped up. Sure enough, one did. It was in coming soon status. So I quick send a message to the agent, hey, any interest on this property yet? Then I get on the phone and I call the agent. Simultaneously, my client texted me, hey, did you see this one? Yeah, I'm already on the phone with the agent trying to figure out what's going on. And try to make a long story short, it was tumultuous to say the least. This particular property had a solar lease on the home. The agent did not do anything prior to open up a case, to start the transfer, anything like that. We had to do everything on our own from the start. And this was a solar company that was getting taken over by another company. They were in transition, so the communication was horrible. It was the absolute worst solar experience that I've had. And we got down to the wire. The last thing we needed was the UCC release. That is it. That's all we needed to close this house. And they needed a wet signature. They needed a wet signature on the document. We could not get a hold of the solar company. It was crazy. It was like the day of closing. I woke up, got my kids to school, 8:30 a.m. I'm on the phone with this company trying to elevate my call to get action. Then they got the document over to my clients. They stopped in transit from California to Arizona to go to some family member's house along the way to print it and basically send it in to the solar company. Well, the agent on the other side did not think that we were going to get it done in time. I go, no, we're going to get this done. We're closing today. He did not believe we were going to get it done. What was it, 3:45 in the afternoon or so? We got it done. I told him we got it done. Everything's in. We are waiting to record. He still didn't think it was going to happen. I'm like, there's no addendum in place. This is going to happen. We're going to get it done. And this house literally recorded at the very end of the day. I got a call at like 4:45. Okay, it closed. I go to the house and there's still a bunch of stuff in the house. The seller left all kinds of things. And I knew that my client was in transit from California. They were going to be there late that night. I just walked in and I looked around and I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? Called the agent. He's like, I'm going to dinner. Sorry, I can help you in the morning. I'm like, no, my client's going to be here tonight. This stuff has to get out of the house. He's like, sorry. So I made a call to a friend who ended up calling our church because this was a member that was going to have a job, at our church. And I would say probably 20 people within the hour or more showed up at the house to help move things into the garage and clean the house. Wow. For this person who was coming, my client. And so we had this huge group, mops and vacuums and dusters and trash bags and boxes and everything. Everybody just showed up in full force and got the house ready for this family. So, and you know what?
Awesome.
Kevin, they stayed calm the whole time. He's like, okay, it's all going to work out. It's all going to be fine. So that's a good hero story on every front.
That's awesome. And that can be very emotional, driving across state lines and moving trucks and where are you going to stay? And so that's definitely, I'm glad that you shared that with us, because I think sometimes it's easy to give, hypothetical stories. Mm-hmm. And then it sounds like a commercial. And when we give real life stories of the customer being the hero, I think it's important. I mean, we're here to come alongside the customers and help them, but it's really their story, not ours. Mm-hmm. So it's just important. And I really appreciate you sharing that. I think that was, it's meaningful to hear. And I think that it sounds like to me from what you've been talking about that there's some sort of pattern or formula for success and no excuses. Your story right there was no excuse mentality about making the phone call to the solar company. Well, you're a realtor. You don't need to do that. You could have been like, oh, it's not my job, but you did it anyways. Mm-hmm. Do you believe there's some sort of pattern or formula to becoming successful?
Oh, again, I wish it was as black and white as people want it to be. But as I think about the conversations I have with my business partner and really what defines success for us in this business is to be persistent and just to be gritty, so to speak, because you deal with a lot. People have a different perception of real estate and realtors and what we do and the money that we make and all these things, not really knowing the nitty gritty of what goes on behind the scenes and how difficult it could be. This year alone, I could have a reality show. Seriously, my business partner and I, we could have a reality show and it would be entertaining because we have experienced some crazy stuff this year. And you endure a lot. And if you care, that's what keeps you up at night. And so you really have to manage the stress. You have to manage your mindset. And you just have to be gritty and persistent and continue to put one foot in front of the other and be consistent with that because it's not easy. It's not easy, but
You
it's amazing.
manage your mindset when, you're maybe worrying or stressed out or something going on. A lot of stuff goes on in real estate specifically, in business overall, but how do you manage your mindset?
Well, I'm a constant work in progress. I think most of us are. I care to a fault. And so I really have to take a step back, figure out what I'm truly able to control because there's a lot that I cannot control. That's where the client being a hero comes in when they realize that it's not all our fault or whatever it is, and that things kind of fall into place as they should. But really just, okay, is this my burden? No, this is not my burden. And there's not really much else that I can do at this point. And then just to be a support role versus having to try to fix everything. So it's a delicate balance of learning how to do that. And then also understanding what is an emergency. Truly, we don't really have real emergencies in this business, I don't think. But what's a sense of urgency? And then what can wait? And really practicing that. And it's like you have to stop and think, okay, can I give this a minute or do I need to respond right away?
That's a great takeaway. One of the things that I'm consistently seeing is that true professionals and no excuse pros are proactive in what they're doing. So they can be less reactive.
Mhm.
Consistently, I'm hearing this where people that have success are proactively doing things to lessen the noise. So one thing that I've learned is if we give proactive updates rather than reactive updates, our phone doesn't ring. Like our goal is to have the phone ring only when there's new clients. Everything else should be an outbound call to going, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what we need help with. Yes, can somebody send us a message and say, hey, I need to talk to you about something? Sure, of course. But our goal is to make sure that people don't have to call us because we're so proactive in our approach that we don't have to be reacting to every fire.
Yeah, and that's part of managing expectations. And that does help lessen the stress for everybody. And like I took that back from my event days because I had to be 20 steps ahead of everybody. I had to think of logistics through an entire function to think about agendas and timelines and meal prep and when the meals are going to get served, like all of that stuff. Well, real estate is like an event planning situation as well. And so if you take it a few steps ahead and you just give your client kind of the outline of what they can expect, there could be some, turbulence along the way. We're going to navigate that. But by and large, this is our path and this is how it's going to work. And I'm going to kind of guide you through each step. So I feel like as long as they know this is what happens next ahead of time, then it just helps keep the flow and keeps things moving better.
Well, what do you want on your resume over the next 2 years? What's the big thing for you that you want on your resume in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah. Well, I'm starting a new program where I get to help serve and represent military families who are PCSing out here to Luke Air Force Base. And that combined with my sphere, because so far, I really just have worked my sphere. I want people to say that Joy helped me buy a home and I didn't think I could. And I was able to achieve the American dream. Because I think one of the biggest obstacles or objections that people have is fear. And again, lack of information, good, trusted information. So if I could somehow help continue the education process and help ease their fear and then help them achieve the American dream, that's great. And whether that's, 15 transactions a year or it's 30, that's okay with me. It's fine. Whatever comes my way and whoever I'm able to serve is a blessing to me.
Awesome. Well, let's go a little more micro too in the next 90 days. So you want to help more families, help military families, and also help them do something that they didn't think they could do. And then as we kind of narrow down over the next 90 days, what do you want to accomplish to kind of head towards that goal? And I know you're already there helping people, but what do you want to accomplish over the next 90 days? And why is that important to you?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. And this is really kind of nitty-gritty for me, but it is fine-tuning my systems because I've got to rein that in. There's so many great systems out there, and I have such a broad toolbox. So I just need to really hone in on my systems, because that's another big thing too, I think, for professionals. When you have a good, solid, tried and true system that you work day in and day out, whether that's your CRM or however you manage your customers, that is a game changer. It helps you be consistent and also reduces stress and keeps you productive. So that's what I need to do.
What's the one system you couldn't live without?
Excel. I'm old school. I'm old school. Yeah, totally an Excel spreadsheet. Yeah, that's
So
it.
you're Excel, not Google Sheets.
No, no, no. Yeah, old school.
You know
I
what?
have a Google Calendar now. I have a Google Calendar.
So one thing I think Excel is the base of everything. A lot of people think about, I'm glad you said that, because Excel can be the hub, right? Like, and then you can spider off. But if anybody's like, well, I'm getting started, or I'm trying to get organized, I've been doing it 10 years, and I'm trying to get organized. What you need to do, I don't care what CRM, I believe in management of a process and having a system. But a lot of people get so stuck in which CRM to do and use and which is the best. There's better ones and worse ones. You can Google and say, what are the best CRMs for real estate agents? But the best way to do it is just literally use an Excel sheet and say, okay, map it out. This is what I started doing about 9 years ago, and I kept it really, really simple. And after being in the business about 10 years, I'm like, okay, I need to build out this. I was really good at Excel and I enjoy playing around with Excel. But I just said, okay, this could be for agents, financial advisors, really anybody in sales, mortgage. Add one person to your database a day and see how much you can help them. How can you help them? How can you serve them? Can you add value? What can you do for them? Add value, add value, add value, and it always comes back around. But having that Excel sheet, and I was highlighted when I worked in Chase back in the day, I had a system, an Excel sheet and stuff, that all I did was I added one person to it, and then I built up processes off of that. And it can get pretty complex as it goes, but the key is to think about keeping it simple. So I actually love that you said Excel.
Good. Yeah. Because if you don't have something that makes sense to you that you're going to actually use, then what's the point? And then you're just back in chaos. So yeah, if you've got it, do it, because the worst thing you could do is nothing. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very cool. Well, I want to kind of land the plane with a few other easy questions if I can. What do you think the biggest challenge in 2024, we're recording this at the end of 2023. What do you think the biggest challenge will be for customers in the next year? And what do they face today as the biggest challenge?
Yeah. I think that most people would say mortgage rates, but I'm not going to say that because I think it's just fear. I think it's fear. Because you may have someone who thinks, gosh, it was just the other day that somebody sent me a post about the bubble bursting and the market crashing. And I'm like, why are we still talking about this? Like, didn't we talk about this 2 years ago? And they said it was going to happen last year and it didn't. And there's so many reasons why, but why don't you dive into those reasons and really try to educate yourself around those reasons versus just taking a little post on someone's random, social media page. It says that the bubble's bursting. Like, really? Okay. So I think it's overcoming the fear of an unstable market. But at the end of the day, I'm not an agent who says everybody should buy right now, but I do believe that everybody should look at what it's going to take to eventually buy, because buying is wonderful. I've told this story multiple times. Back in 2012, my husband and I bought our house that we're in now. Well, I was terrified. I was like, what are we thinking? We're buying a second home. We're keeping our other one. We're not going to foreclose on that like everybody else did. We couldn't get a tenant in there. So we could have easily short sold or done whatever, but we just couldn't bring ourselves to do it. So we kept 2 houses, and then we ended up moving family in there as our tenants. And then we've been in here since 2012. But I thought, we're nuts, but we knew deep down that it was a good financial decision for us. We just didn't know when it would become that good financial decision. Well, today's the day. If we had to sell today, we would have the most tremendous amount of equity that I would have even fathomed back in 2012. I had no idea. So to buy and to hold and really understand the benefits of that and the wealth that that could bring, or the fact that, 10 years from now, when my son's about to go to college, that, God willing, yeah, our other rental house, I could sell that. And if he is going to go to college and knows what he wants to do, or maybe join the military, we don't have to worry about it. I can sell that house and help maybe fund some of his college or whatever it is. It just being able to have that and helping people understand the power and the freedom that home ownership can bring. But I think it's a long game.
I think that's awesome. And it's what people overlook is they're buying somewhere to live. Sometimes it's fear. You nailed it. Fear is definitely the biggest concern, because there was fear in all different markets. I've been doing this 19 years. And you look at overall, there's always fear somewhere. Sometimes it's a little less, a little bit more. And I think it's definitely higher right now. But people forget why they're buying a house. Like, you're not buying a house to have a mortgage payment. You're not buying a house to have a big mortgage, a balance. You're buying a house to live there in most situations. Or you're buying it for, hey, I live in Chicago and I want to be by my grandkids. There's a reason why you're buying it. And sometimes people have forgotten about that. And it's also, people saw these big, huge inflation, large jumps of appreciation. And whether the house appreciates or not, people need a place to live. People need to have stronger communities. You talked about Verrado. Well, what if every single house in Verrado was a rental?
Mm-hmm.
You would have a very different community there than a bunch of people that own the houses there.
Mm-hmm.
Ownership is about community, and ownership is about family. Then it's also about the financial piece as well, because sometimes values don't go up. Well, does that mean that you just let the house go? No, you live there, So I think that's something that I'm trying to make sure I lean in on, and because sometimes numbers don't always add up, and you want to have a heart and be sensitive to, hey, I want my payment to be $1,200. Okay, well, I hear that, but it's going to be a little bit higher than that. So let's think about why you're doing this. You're not going to doing it to get a $1,200 payment. You're doing it to get to a house to live in, and your kids to go to school nearby, and that's why you're doing it. Not that we want to push you up in price, but it needs to be realistic. Does that resonate at all?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like we said, unless you're here for a short time, such as a military family or something like that. We're more transient than we've ever been. It's like we come, we go, but honestly, if you're able to buy and hold, or whether you are able to buy, hold, and then go buy again later down the road and expand a real estate portfolio, a lot of people don't think they can do that. You think, how is that possible? But again, aligning with the right professionals that can help you is key, because it's more possible for people than they realize. They just have to make smart moves, budget, which is something we don't like to talk about, these days, but yeah, it's possible with the hard work.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. You do a great job. I appreciate you, and crossing paths with you a couple years ago. And I know you're doing an awesome job, and keep it up. If anybody wanted to reach out to you to talk about, maybe about if they're a realtor or a home buyer, and wanted to talk to you, how would they reach you, Joy?
I am all over the interwebs, which was also a hard thing to get used to, getting into the industry. But yeah, they could literally just Google my name and I'm there. AZ Homes with Joy is my handle on Instagram. You could send me a DM, and then literally Google Joy Rosek and you'll find it all.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure we'll find all great stuff out there on the internet, and we appreciate you. You're amazing. Thank you so much for being a No Excuse Pro. You truly are. And you're 4 years into it, a really amazing career. And I'm just excited to see that journey as it, continues to grow. And I know you're going to do awesome over the next couple of years and really help a lot of families buy and sell and stage real estate.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. And likewise to you guys. You guys are amazing. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Joy.
Thanks, Kevin.
And there you have it, folks. Another enlightening episode of the No Excuse Pro podcast is in the books. A heartfelt thank you to today's guests for sharing their wisdom, and to you, our valued listeners, for spending your time with us. If you're ready to ditch the excuses and level up, make sure to subscribe and find all our episodes at noexcusepropodcast.com. Don't forget, the only thing standing between you and your goals is the story you tell yourself. So no excuses accepted here. Take action and make it happen.